Ticker Ed, in association with Enquiry Tracker, empowering schools to manage and grow inquiries and online enrolments.
Hello and welcome back to Ticker Ed, where we will be unpacking and examining the way we teach, listen and learn from primary education through to university and beyond. Ticker Ed is, of course, backed by the team at Enquiry Tracker, who are the all-in-one solution for schools to easily manage their future families. Now, whilst Enquiry Tracker is the presenting sponsor of today's program, all of the opinions and statements expressed in the following segment, of course, our own. Joining me now is my regular co-host and co-founder of Enquiry Tracker, Greg Campitelli, and today's topic, which is an interesting one, we're talking about the way personality can impact on the way we learn at school. Greg, thank you so much for joining me.
It's a fascinating one, isn't it, Mike?
It certainly is, and it affects the way we... Everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Psychology has been trying to unpack this for the last 100 years, and it's been dominated thinking for centuries or millennia, really. But when you think about it, we often classify personalities into two common types. You're either an extrovert or you're an introvert. And if you think of astrology, for example, which is sort of based on the stars, they're trying to group people into 12 patterns. I'm Cancer. What are you?
I'm a Libran. All balance all the time.
I can't remember what a Cancer's supposed to be. Sorry, I've forgotten. When you think of the Chinese zodiac, for example,
Metal goat.
Metal goat.
Chinese zodiac, metal goat.
It's trying to put there's this repeating cycle over 12 years, and I'm the year of the ox, which is supposed to be honest, diligent, and traditional, which I hope I am. In Japan, for example, they put a lot of weight in blood type. So if you're a type A, for example, you're supposed to be organised and a little stubborn. If you're type B, you're easygoing but insensitive. And in fact, 99% of Japanese people know their blood type.
Interesting.
What type are you?
I have no idea.
Nor do I. Terrible. At Enquiry Tracker, I've been working with people for years, and I often try to find, if you're saying, Greg, what type of person would you like to employ in your company? I like to employ solution finders rather than hurdle builders. And I think we've been often exposed to those sort of people in the workplace. Now, while we're against pigeonholing people, I think it's really important to understand these kind of broad characteristics that we borrow from.
Okay, so why is it so important to understand the personality types for people when it comes to education and learning, I suppose, students at all ages? And shapes and sizes?
Well, I think as teachers we have to really realise that there's a broad mix of personality type in your classroom, and not everyone is the same, but you've got to be aware of those personality types. Those personality types can bring strengths and weaknesses. We've got to be careful as teachers, and I fell into this trap, that the dominant extroverts can dominate the kind of narrative in the classroom, and the introverts don't get a chance, whereas perhaps the introverts can have more considered in-depth thinking and make more considered responses. So I think we've got to be very careful of not just mimicking our teaching to the personality style that matches ourselves.
Interesting. Yeah, I think one size does not fit all personality types.
No, it doesn't. One size doesn't fit all.
No, but there is literally dozens of personality assessment tools available out there. Do you know of any of the best ones that you've sort of seen? And I suppose
there's a lot. And there's the 360 psychometric assessment. There's the Howard's multiple intelligences.
Yep.
There's lots of them, right? But they're tools. Remember, they are tools, and their results are indicative, not absolute. What we've got to be careful of, I think, Mike, is stereotyping people into one box and can only be in that box.
Yep.
You're X, Y, Z, you can't be A, B, C, because the test told me you're X, Y, Z. And I think that we've got to make sure that, the other thing about those personality tests is they're often very hard to complete. They take ages to complete.
Yep.
They give you a kind of an unusual answer, or sort of this code answer. You think, what's that supposed to mean again? I can't remember.
INFJ B2.
Correct. What's that? And then what to do with the result.
Yeah, right.
So what's happened, and I think this is a perfect opportunity to bring our expert guest in today, is who's been working in the space of classifying personality for a long time, particularly with students and in the corporate sector, but based on animals. So thinking about eagles, parrots, doves, and owls. Suddenly a lot easier to remember and a lot easier to digest and grasp.
Okay, that is a good time. Let's bring him on in. And joining us from Malta, New Jersey, just outside of Philadelphia, is Merrick Rosenberg, the CEO of Take Flight Learning, which is a company specializing in training programs for schools and corporates and families to really maximize how understanding our personality can shape the way we learn, teach, and of course interact with others. He's also an author of several books, including Which Bird Are You? Hi, Merrick. Welcome to the program. It's good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Now, this is a very interesting and fascinating space. You've obviously been listening to Greg and I sort of try to unpack it, but let's start off with a little bit about you. Tell us about Take Flight Learning and what you get up to.
It's really about teaching people about themselves. You think about personality and it can be incredibly complicated, but the reality is if you can make it simple, you can teach people how to work together better in the corporate workspace, and you can teach children how to understand themselves and help parents to better understand their children. So that's what we do. We teach people about who they are and how to get along better with others.
Okay, Merrick, I think you've got to really unpack this for us. I want to hear all about these four birds, one by one, and break down these personalities and perhaps the story behind the four birds, please, as well.
I was using letters like many people have done over the years, and I just found that people didn't remember them. It became an alphabet soup of letters that you go back 3 months later and they're like, wait, which one is the D? What's the I? And they just couldn't remember. So I wanted to make it visual, and I linked the four styles to four birds just to make it very simple and easy to use. So I'll give you a sense of what they're all about. We've got eagles. And you think about an eagle, and what do you think? Even without me teaching you about the eagle style, when you think of an eagle, what comes to mind for you?
Cunning and predatory instinct.
Flying.
Well, they're certainly at the top of the food chain. They are confident, and they are direct, and they are assertive. They're take charge. You can imagine even a child in the classroom who they get together for a school project, and that's the one who takes over. They just want to be the boss. Next up, you have a parrot. So if a person had the traits of a parrot, what do you think that person would be like?
Extroverted, bright, fun, perhaps?
That's exactly right. And it's intuitive. And what you're doing here is that if it's intuitive right now, it'll be intuitive 5 years from now. You don't have to memorize it. Parrots are fun. They're talkative. They're social. They're optimistic. They always see the bright side in everything. So if a person had the style of the dove, what do you think that person would be like?
Ooh, elegance, quiet,
gentle.
Exactly right. They're soft-spoken, they're compassionate, they're caring. They're the one in the classroom. They're that child who they can sense when another kid is upset, when someone else isn't happy. They just feel it. And last up, we have an owl. So when you think of the owl, if a person had the traits of an owl, what do you think they would be like?
They're wise. They're wise as Harry Potter. That's what I think.
It's true. I mean, we think of every owl that is a cartoon owl has always been drawn as intelligent and wise. And it's that they're thoughtful. And anybody can be intelligent, of course, but they're logical, they're analytical, they are detail oriented. And of course, we are not just one, we're a combination of all of them. But when we think of these four birds, it gives us the ability to meet people very and say, here, that's that person's style. You mentioned Harry Potter, somebody like Hermione, she is the owl. It's you immediately grasp that she's detail oriented and analytical. And that's the power of using something that is visual. We can not only use it to understand ourselves, but we can use it to understand others as well.
It's very clever, these sort of simplified archetypes you've come up with, but why bring the styles to kids, do you think? And I suppose, how do they benefit from these sort of things? And and how can they benefit teachers as well, I suppose, is another question.
Absolutely. When you have a child who understands themselves, they feel confident. They don't feel as though they need to try to be someone else. So often in schools, we have this image of extroverts. You've got to be more talkative. You need to be more outgoing. But what about those doves who are more soft-spoken, or those owls who want to take their time to make sure that it's right? And if you can help children to understand their style, they're not trying to change into somebody else. They're confident being who they are. And imagine teachers. I remember I have two children. One of them is the parrot. One of them is an owl. And I remember going to a back to school night where we go to meet the teachers, and they're in the early years, these are their first few years in school, and they're in the same school at this point. And I go and I meet my parrot's teacher. And what does she say? He just moves too fast. He's always talking, and he's got to slow down, and he's got to focus. Yeah, because he's a parrot. Then I went down the hall and I met my owl child's teacher. And what did she say? He needs to speed up. He takes a long time. He gets things right, but he's taking so long. He's not finishing his work. And I wish I had the language to speak to that teacher and say, yes, it's because my older child is the parrot, my younger one is the owl, and they would just understand that. So it not only helps the children, but it helps the teachers too.
Merrick, I'm really interested in understanding how these personality types can also help with things like sort of bullying and inclusiveness and, things like that are real issues in education.
Absolutely. You take a look at why does bullying happen? It happens because very often children aren't getting the attention that they need, often at home. And, what if they're just getting the wrong kind of attention? Imagine two parents and they're both eagles and they have a dove child, and the message they're sending to that dove child is, look, you need to be assertive and you need to stand up for yourself. You need to be direct and you need to fight for what you want. And that dove child is saying, I just want to be with my friends. I just want to hang out with one friend and talk. And what parents often do is they send these messages that, what if I am treating you in a way that does not represent your style? And what that message, that underlying message is, I don't value you for who you are. So a lot of times understanding themselves, children understanding themselves, parents understanding their children, it helps to alleviate things like bullying, because people then treat children the way they need to be treated, and children also value who they are.
Wonderful stuff from you. Thanks for joining us, Merrick, of course. All right, Greg, I always get you to give us some Ticker Ed top tips. What have you got for us?
Okay, we've got three big ones here today. So firstly, spend quality time to really understand the personalities of your students and understand they're all different. Shape your teaching style to accommodate the different personality traits. Don't adopt a one-size-fits-all mentality. And finally, why not jump on Merrick's website and find out which bird are you? Complete the profile.
I'm going to go and do that this afternoon, I reckon.
Absolutely.
Greg, thanks for joining me on the program.
Cheers.
Thought-provoking show today, presented by the team at Enquiry Tracker. And of course, if you'd like to learn more about how your school can use this amazing admission software, head over to enquirytracker.net. What a great show for today. All right, I've been Mike Lotter. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Be well.